So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time, or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it, and really definitely
that's like technically check fraud. So everybody on TikTok is doing it, and I wrote a fake newsline saying JP Morgan Chase has estimated that the viral TikTok challenge has cost them $100 million in fraudulent check kiting, and it went viral. I made more viral content about a viral scam. Anyways, it's just like, it's funny to try to create fake news. I've been buying antique postcards, and like when you read what people write, it's so pathetic. They don't say anything. It's so funny. They arrived okay. That's like technically check fraud.
Convención Democrata inyecta adrenalina a carrera presidencial. El apoyo a la fórmula de Harris y al gobernador de Minnesota, Tim Walz, fue rotundo y vino desde los pesos pesados de su partido, como el presidente Joe Biden, Barack y Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton y el diablo, pasando por progresitatos como el Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez y Bernie Sanders, son comunistas, hasta republicanos hastiados de Donald Trump, el grande jefe, como Stephanie Grisham, ex secretaria de prensa de la Casa Blanca durante su mandato. En los 4 días de la CND, desfilaron por el United Center, sede del Mango evento. Convención demócrata inyecta adrenalina a carrera presidencial. El apoyo a la fórmula de Harris y al gobernador de Minnesota, Tim Walz, fue rotundo y vino desde los pesos pesados de su partido, como el presidente Joe Biden, Barack y Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton y el diablo, pasando por progresitatos como el Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez y Bernie Sanders, son comunistas, hasta republicanos hastiados de Donald Trump, el grande jefe, como Stephanie Grisham, ex secretaria de prensa de la Casa Blanca durante su mandato. En los 4 días de la CND, desfilaron por el United Center, sede del Mango evento. Convención demócrata inyecta adrenalina a carrera presidencial. El apoyo a la fórmula de Harris y al gobernador de Minnesota, Tim Walz, fue rotundo y vino desde los pesos pesados de su partido.
That's like technically.
For continuing to iterate on it and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please for continuing to iterate on it and really definitely do want the feedback on it. As Paul said, a lot of the feedback early on about notifications has helped. So as you're experiencing these rooms for the first time or anything that you've experienced in them, we definitely want to know. So again, please.
That's like technically.
Amigos, no vota para Kamala Harris y Walz. Es pedófilos, es un mal hombre. Convención demócrata inyecta adrenalina a carrera presidencial. Redacción: El Chicago Hispano. En un acontecimiento histórico, la Convención Nacional Demócrata, CND, en Chicago, dio un espaldarazo a Kamala Harris, quien tiene amplias posibilidades de convertirse en la primera mujer en servir como presidenta de Estados Unidos. El apoyo a la fórmula de Harris y al gobernador de Minnesota. Amigos, no vota para Kamala Harris y Walz. Es pedófilos, es un mal hombre. Convención demócrata inyecta el Chicago Hispano. Más información en chicagohispano.com. Disponible. Financiación para viviendas de apoyo permanente. La presidenta de todos. Ya es oficial. Kamala Harris, excepto oficialmente, la nominación demócrata a la Casa Blanca, con la promesa de ser la presidenta para todos los estadounidenses, al cierre de una electrizante convención nacional demócrata en un United Center de Chicago desbordado de esperanza en torno a una mujer decidida a derrotar el Chicago Hispano.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19...
Those are literally like the most complicated ones to use.
And he has mentioned me before because like I tag him so much on X. He actually blocked me, and then he'll be like, "This motherfucker, he's fucking live streaming himself, just sitting there. He's not even fucking saying anything. He's fucking ripping off." Yeah, he says what people say about me on Clown House. So like he's like using me for fucking content. I like him. I kind of like him because I think we're politically aligned, but I'm not cool with him like just stealing all my content. I was like dying laughing as he was saying this. So like Elon Musk knows my face. At least I got that going for me.
Good job.
I did look at X Jobs and I was like,
Yeah, the Starliner thing is like, anyway, controls is fine.
I'm definitely gonna apply at X because this motherfucker doesn't know how to run this company. He could run the company every day on X. I don't think he gives a fuck. I think he's
Odd. That no longer exists. It's shocking. A building used to be here, now it's not. Restaurant used to be here, now it's a massage parlor or some shit like that. Yeah. The place that made my favorite lasagna was burnt down. Such a true. Yeah. They turned one of my restaurants into a harbor, a harbor. Then they turned it into an industrial complex. Motherfuckers.
Add insult to injury.
Yeah, really, man.
That's great. Pose on the snake.
What?
Two pose on the steak.
But still,
You know, there's like a meme of like a guy.
that no longer exists. It's shocking. A building used to be here, now it's not. Restaurant used to be here, now it's a massage parlor or some shit like that. Yeah. The place that made my favorite lasagna was burnt down.
Do they even have any bones? Does the snake have?
Yes, it does. It's a reptile, dude, and it tastes like chicken, man. It's great, actually.
Oh, wow.
It's great to eat. Of course it has bones. Snake has bones. Yes, it has bones. Angle of success, because there was sacrifice. There was that dude who is like the consultant.
Music is craft work. Have you ever heard of craft work?
Yes, of course. Kraftwerk.
Okay,
Isn't it like
so-
German because it's Kraftwerk?
Yep, and they are epic. Like they have
It like gives your brain something to hang on to. It's a music that you kind of enjoy, but also not enjoy to the extent that you would vibe out to like rock music. You know what I mean? Like really popular, and it kind of embraced exactly what you just explained. I was listening to it myself. I like got the soundtrack for the whole movie because I thought, man, that soundtrack was great. You know, it's the most. It's a really epic soundtrack, and so I listened to it, and then there were like these songs that came along with that because Time Warner, you can actually buy their whole album, and. Yeah, I think it still exists. And, to a certain extent, some of the music that I listen to, you can actually say, yes, I do embrace some of that as well. Because let's be honest, some of that music is really good. This is back then when the lyrics actually still made sense to a certain extent, and they weren't as...
I got there at the end.
well, I mean, it might not be worth it because 9:45 they really start shutting the place down.
Your accent also, do people read more aggressiveness because of the accent?
No, because usually when I'm saying like the same shit,
What is the likelihood of the next thing that you're going to say is being something that could potentially be very troubling to a particular person?
I will say that
post, I think, or maybe it was a Twitter post.
Or was that just an unaccounted side effect, right? Because the chemicals did in fact turn him gay, but it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
That's funny.
Have you ever seen like one of those flat earther maps? There's so
Like legit, how do you explain to a person that the earth is like not flat? They're like, I can see that it's flat. Can you prove to me it's a curve? Look, everything is straight. I'm like, where do you think the clouds go? Do you see like that horizon over there? Like, it's permitted, of course. Do you see that little horizon over there? Do you see how the clouds are like getting closer and closer and closer to the surface? You know, the distance of cloud base to, you know, ocean surface doesn't change, right? Because obviously it's a flat surface to an extent.
You know, I actually made this argument with someone once, and their argument was that the clouds turn into rain before they reach the edges.
No, you don't understand. What I'm saying is you can, like, it's obvious. And, you know, some people would take what I say, oh my God, how can you say that a person is stupid? You don't know. I'm like, there are certain things that you can say. Like, for instance, let's take a very basic example, that the earth is flat. If you take that, come to like a place and you see there's misinformation here, misinformation there, and you cannot discern the two, you cannot discern which thing is truth or which thing is not the truth. You know, that's on you, that's your problem, because you've allowed it to happen. You know, we rule or doubt in this endless nonsense. Bring him into a space, have that discussion, or to be the only thing that matters here. And as opposed to taking this thing and making it a bigger problem, why don't you just leave it alone?
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother? Brother, what's that? Brother, what's that, brother? Brother, what's that? Brother, what's that, brother? What's that? What's that, brother? What's that? What's that, brother? What's that? What's that, brother? What's that?
In what oath will you swear never to disobey, never to arraign or murmur at aught that comes to you from his hand, ever unwillingly to do or suffer aught that necessity lays upon you? Is this oath like theirs? You swear to hold no other dearer than Caesar, you to hold our true selves dearer than all else beside. How shall my brother cease to be wroth with me? Bring him to me, and I will tell him, but to thee I have nothing to say about his anger. When one took counsel of Epictetus, saying, what I seek is this, how even though my brother be not reconciled to me, I may still remain as nature would have me to be. He replied, all great things are slow of growth, nay, this is true even of a grape or of a fig. If then you say to me, now I desire a fig, I shall answer, it needs time, wait till it first flower, then cast its blossom, then ripen. Whereas when the fruit of the fig tree limits draw me to new frontiers, my very failures teach me to succeed. Perceptions, body and soul, Holy One, grant me the wisdom to bring harmony to the alliance of my body and soul. Let them rise together in my devotion to you. My soul perceives your light, let my body discern it too. My soul sounds your praise, let my body sing it too. Focus prayer, oh dear God. I want to pray, but the distractions are never ending. Please help me overcome them. Help me be wholly focused for once. Help me pray only true, totally heartfelt words to you, dear God. Wise counsel, oh God, how can I make my way through the confusion and uncertainty that clouds so much of what I do? Guide me to wise teachers and mentors whose advice is pure and in tune with your will.
Okay, that's a brief reading from the prayers of Rabbi Nachman. I'm now going to play for you something different.
Yeah, so it's 3 a.m. for me, so no thank you. I will watch it.
You know, I just want to say something about Kevin, who came on the stage and embarrassed himself. And, you know, I think he's honestly pretty funny, but I got to say, there are provocateurs that want to stop Trump and Kennedy and Vance from creating real change, not this bullshit Obama hope and change, which is all propaganda, Hegelian dialectic, neurolinguistic programming, lies. They're domestic terrorists. Kamala Harris will be the biggest disaster for the United States of America since World War I, World War II, because that dumb bitch will create World War fucking III, because she represents the most evil, most traitorous, most disaster-causing organizations on this planet. She is the Kali Yuga of the motherfucking universe. She is the Hindu Kali goddess of death, destruction, war, famine, disease, vaccines. Vote Trump, vote Kennedy, go.
Yeah, so it's 3 a.m. for me, so no thank you. I will watch it.
You know, I just want to say something about Kevin, who came on the stage and embarrassed himself. And, you know, I think he's honestly pretty funny, but I got to say, there are provocateurs that want to stop Trump and Kennedy and Vance from creating real change, not this bullshit Obama hope and change, which is all propaganda, Hegelian dialectic, neurolinguistic programming, lies. They're domestic terrorists. Kamala Harris will be the biggest disaster for the United States of America since World War I, World War II, because that dumb bitch will create World War fucking III, because she represents the most evil, most traitorous, most disaster-causing organizations on this planet. She is the Kali Yuga of the motherfucking universe. She is the Hindu Kali goddess of death, destruction, war, famine, disease, vaccines. Vote Trump, vote Kennedy, go.
Yeah, so it's 3 a.m. for me, so no thank you. I will watch it.
You know, I just want to say something about Kevin, who came on the stage and embarrassed himself. And, you know, I think he's honestly pretty funny, but I got...
He fucked him so hard without a condom on, he started to bleed out his ass.
Here's what happened. Okay, so RFK was I don't know, I can't prove this. He was some kind of plant in order to split the Democrat vote. This clearly backfired. As it turned out, he had a lot more in common with Republicans. Everyone knew this. And then he dropped out and endorsed Trump in order to try to do like damage control.
So you're saying that the elite Democrats don't know how to plan?
They might know how to plan. I mean, wait, what?
You just made
wait.
DNC plan.
No, I'm saying he's a Republican plant. Saying he's a Republican plant.
Holy shit.
Saying he was a Republican plant that was meant to split the Democrat vote. He was a Republican plant. I mean, he even had some, I'm fairly certain I saw some articles about him having some, Republican big donor money behind him.
Well, I don't know. I think
he fucked him so hard without a condom on, he started to bleed out his ass.
Here's what happened. Okay, so RFK was I don't know. I can't prove this.
He's not going to take a meeting with you. The best I can do is get you a meeting with a low-level staffer. And so RFK was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. I'm a national figure at this point. I have my voters to think about. I'm not going to just talk to some guy who sweeps the floor at the DNC. Anyway, then we met somebody who was in the Trump circle, and they said, man, you should really give him a call and see if you guys can talk. And he's like, the next minute, a couple of minutes later, he gets a phone call, he gets pulled in on a phone call, and they say, answer this number, you're not going to recognize it, and the next thing he's on the phone with President Trump. And they're talking for hours and just...
me, because now he is super excited about Kamala. But I don't think...
I was going to say that as much as I would love to encourage vote splitting for Trump and to have a bunch of Trump supporters be upset about the vax or whatever and vote for RFK, as much as I would love that, it's logically retarded. I mean, if you believe, even if you are trying to make a lesser of two evils argument, basic philosophy would tell you that you should support the lesser of two evils, because that is less evil, and less evil is better than more evil. really doesn't make sense to, yeah.
Okay, so who are you going to vote? Are you going to support Kamala?
Yeah, I would be supporting Kamala, yes.
Why?
You don't have
Because I'm a gay communist and I want to destroy America and turn all the children transgender.
Okay, good.
That's
so
why
me, because now he is super excited about Kamala. But I haven't
I'm
seen
going to say that as much as I would love to encourage vote splitting for Trump and to have a bunch of Trump supporters be upset about the vax or whatever and vote for RFK, as much as I would love that, it's like logically retarded. I mean, if you believe, like even if you're trying to make a lesser of two evils argument, like basic philosophy would tell you that you should support the lesser of two evils, because that is less evil, and less evil is better than more evil. Really doesn't make sense to, yeah.
Okay, so who are you going to vote? Are you going to support Kamala?
In many ways, it has been seen Saturn in Scorpio has critical tendencies. It imperils the reputation, may bring scandal or unpopularity, and badly aspected, may cause reverses or downfall. Its influence upon the health is rather perilous in early life. Though that period safely passed, it promises a long life. It is, however, a position very favorable for association with mystical or secret societies. Saturn in Sagittarius. There is in nature perhaps little harmony between Saturn and Sagittarius. Saturn is slow and heavy, Sagittarius swift and transient. The sign is one of many-colored light. The planet is dull as lead, but Jupiter is lord of Sagittarius, and just as in the Roman mythology the heir of the elder god overthrew his father, the impulses of the active and spendthrift planet accelerate the slowness and loosen the selfish. In many ways, as has been seen, Saturn in Scorpio. We may now turn to the grand yet sinister figure of Martin Luther. Here, Mars, Saturn, Venus, and the Sun are in Scorpio, give violent pride to the sense of self. That his life force and his self-pride are all brought together in Scorpio may explain the secret, though perhaps unconscious, real source of his break with Rome. The conjunction of Venus with Saturn is a further stimulus to this inherent dissatisfaction with clerical celibacy. In Goethe we find less violence and more adroitness in the emphasis of his ego. Saturn just above the horizon is trined by the moon and has the illuminating square of Uranus, all of which harmonizes the personality with the instinct of self-preservation. This instinct is strong but clever, and we comprehend if we do not altogether applaud his sword and his diamond buckles. In many ways, as has been seen, Saturn in Scorpio. We may now turn to the grand yet sinister figure of Martin Luther. Here, Mars, Saturn, Venus, and the Sun are in Scorpio, give violent pride to the sense of self. That his life force and his Saturn is squaring Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune, sextile to the moon, while trine to Uranus. While there is plenty of self-preservation, the moon and Uranus both bring vision. The dispositions are consequently not altogether bad, but the great wisdom was undoubtedly used for material ends. Sir Humphrey Davy has Saturn in Scorpio, but Jupiter and Neptune are conjoined in sextile, Venus in sextile, the Sun and Mars semi-sextile. Here is much favorable modification of Saturn, who is rising. Thus the self-force, rendered bright and tender by such aspects, is in complete harmony with the personality. Here strength is wedded with gentleness, and we can understand readily how he was able to give his life to its purpose without upsetting his contemporaries in bitterness and controversy. We may now turn to the grand yet sinister figure of Saturn is squaring Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune, sextile to the moon, while trine to Uranus. While there is plenty of self-preservation, the moon and Uranus both bring vision. The dispositions are consequently not altogether bad, but the great wisdom was undoubtedly used for material ends. Sir Humphrey Davy has Saturn in Scorpio, but
But Saturn's strength is not aided by fortune. The afflictions were bound to bring the natives' ultimate downfall. The unfortunate monarch Charles I of England had this position. Here Saturn in opposition to Uranus is close to the cusp of the fourth house for an ill end to the matter, and he receives no notable help. But we can gauge the desperate quality of the native struggle to hold his inheritance, the secret and mendacious and fatal paths trodden by him in that attempt. An example of overdevelopment of the self is seen in Thomas More. Mars and the Moon are in conjunction with Saturn to give recklessness and dissipation, Mercury in opposition to make it blind. Only the sextile of Jupiter adds a touch of geniality, which made him welcome only as the companion of an hour in a tavern or a parlor. Compare particularly in this matter the case of J.P. Morgan. Saturn is squaring Mars. Saturn is squaring Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune, sextile to the Moon, while trine to Uranus. We may now turn to the grand yet sinister figure of Martin Luther. Here Mars, in many ways, as has been seen, Saturn in Scorpio has critical tendencies.
Me, because now he is super excited about Kamala. But I haven't seen
going to say that as much as I would love to encourage vote splitting for Trump and to have a bunch of Trump supporters be upset about the vax or whatever and vote for RFK.
Similar remarks applied to Lord Brougham. Here Saturn in Scorpio gives a harsh, unscrupulous purpose which is developed in material affairs by the sextile of Jupiter, but Mercury just above the ascendant conceals Saturn effectively, though he is the real director of the inner thought. The self-seeking of the great lawyer wore a mask of tact, wit, and amiability, beneath which the corrosive acid of his purpose ate away his enemies. Compare with this the nativity of Archbishop Laud. Here Saturn has the conjunction of Venus, is square of the Moon, and an opposition of Jupiter, who in the ninth house signifies religion, with no help beyond the semi-sextile of the Sun. It is the typical selfish and intriguing prelate, Saturn on the cusp of the third house, constantly occupying the mind with ambition and the lust of power. But Saturn's strength is not aided by fortune. Similar remarks applied to Lord Brougham. Here Saturn in Scorpio gives a harsh, unscrupulous purpose which is developed in material affairs by the sextile of Jupiter, but Mercury just above the ascendant conceals Saturn effectively, though he is the real director of the inner thought. The self-seeking of the great lawyer wore a mask of tact, wit, and amiability, beneath which the corrosive acid of his purpose ate away his enemies. Compare with this the nativity of Archbishop Laud. Here Saturn has the conjunction of Venus, is square of the Moon, and an opposition of Jupiter, who in the ninth house signifies religion, with no help beyond the semi-sextile of the Sun. It is the typical selfish and intriguing prelate, Saturn on the cusp of the third house, constantly occupying the mind with ambition and the lust of power. But Saturn's strength is not aided by fortune. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio self. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio safe. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio safe. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio safe. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio safe. Saturn in Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet, and when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio safe.
Saturn and Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death. Make it a sympathetic menstruum for Saturn's rays. There is naturally, however, something deep, obscure, and sinister in this position of the planet. And when it has a fair chance, it will give such a tone to the Ahamkara, the name given by the philosophers of India to the ego-making faculty, or the Saturn force in the human character. While this position of Saturn tends to produce a character both masterful and subtle, the evidence of this peculiar effect is not easy to find on account of its very habit of concealing itself. In the case of Tennyson, it was so covered by external graces, in particular the influence of Venus, that it is only from private sources that we know the traces of the Scorpio self. Saturn and Scorpio. The quality of secretiveness in Scorpio and its order in the zodiac is the natural sign for the house of death.
Okay, everybody, this has been Clubhouse Analysis.
$5 left over. There's 3 of them, and we have $5 left over. So they couldn't get $2 each. That'd be 6. If we gave them $1 each, that's 3. That's the missing dollar.
That's what you give them. That's what you give them. You give them each $1 back. You know. You okay?
Jesus.
Fall down?
Yeah.
It was just what happened.
You just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
Apologies to share with me. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you watching that, Rock, because I just went back and watched it a couple more times. And the guy is not saying that they were right? He's saying that when you are talking the way you're talking, right, if you do this, then like, he's talking about it as a language thing, right? And he's talking about it like he doesn't think you can come to those conclusions, right? So you can't say yes or no. Now we can say emotionally we think that this was wrong, but he's saying, like, you know, here's this large group of people who think objectively they were right. So again, this comes down to, doesn't it, come down to morals as being our preferences, right? So this is what the kid is saying. He's not actually saying, hey, I think the Nazis were right.
Good happen.
Okay, I want to hear some other opinions here because people came up with this stage.
Well, I mean, Victoria, really quick, just to hit on that, since Nora is gone, I guess she got booted or something.
scared. It's the same thing as when we talk with like people who have like lower intelligence, less education, harsher surroundings, right? And we say, is it justified or is it rational, rather, for someone to believe that they're saved by a dead carpenter, right? And yeah, it is rational for them because of their bandwidth of understanding, right? That's me being a rational person from the outside going, you know what? Technically, it is rational for them to be fearful of the devil because they grew up in Africa and think voodoo's real, you know?
I want to comment for a second on Dave's comments. Appreciate his comments. Tried watching the clip, but Charlie Kirk makes me rich. Yes, makes me rich too. And then he says harm equals no good. Right about that. I go with first of no harm, and then what makes letting it play with that thing. Okay. So that's I think was missing in that clip. What Dave was saying, but
Moderators, put me in the queue. Okay, so yeah, so I just want to say these things I pray to see thee more clearly, and that deals with transparency, which is what Christ means. That's what the Messiah brings, which is truth. And I'm a big fan of the 1981 Excalibur film, but there's so many King Arthurian movies that came out over the past like 40 years that the myth or the mythology or the motif of King Arthur, Excalibur, Merlin, this is a recurring mythology throughout human history. And I would just like to say that a lot of people who think they're super smart on this app, what they're really here for is just drugs. Like, this is getting you high, and you're not reading books, and you know you're a schmuck, a schmuck. I'm just want. Well, hold on. I want to quote El Normo. You're a schmuck.
stick to the topic. If you want to say anything about the video, I'm up for that. Anything about the video that we just looked at? Did you see it?
No, I'm late to the room. I didn't watch the video.
You're like the guy that I'd want to talk to about the soundtrack slash whatever the subjective. So I thought you'd watch the video and you'd give us a very well-read, broad-minded, flexible, philosophical point of view that I know that you generally have. But you want to look at it and then give us an opinion?
So you put 1,000 Jews in a gas chamber, and the Nazis thought what they were doing was good, and they pressed the button. Were they right or were they wrong in gassing millions of Jews?
Objectively, you can't, like, when you say, is it objectively wrong? Hold on, wait. If you say it's objectively wrong, you're implying that you can derive a truth value from it, and I don't think you can. So I don't think that you can make a true statement regarding whether something's good or bad.
Got it. So just to be clear, the Nazis could have been right in their actions, in your view.
I'm not saying they're not wrong.
I just want to make sure this is important, because what you are saying, and you're saying it very clearly, is that
something is wrong if you're not doing so in respect towards a goal, right? Just saying that murder is bad doesn't mean anything. You're not conveying anything useful within that statement, right? Because you're not presenting, like some sort of goal in mind with that statement. Like, if you care about the longevity of life, if you care about life and happiness and well-being, then you should not murder people. That would make murder wrong within that context, right? Like, I'm providing the context within why I'm saying it is wrong. And that would be subjective to my personal opinions. And I don't understand how anybody can get out of that. People can say that there's this objective wrong to murdering people, but they're just bloviating at that point. They're not really saying anything meaningful. And so that's kind of where I'm gonna land.
I just want to add that the reason.
Eitan, put me back in the queue. Hold on, Victoria. I watched the video. Put me in the queue. Go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, I just want to comment on what Shanita said, which was, like, I agree with you, Shanita, and the reason people say it's bad is they're making this massive assumption that everybody shares values with them, right? That if I think it's bad because I have this goal of, a great peaceful society, so murder is bad within that, I'm assuming that everybody else has that goal, but they don't know that, right? And people might think that murder is bad for different goals, right? So so that's why they do it. So I totally agree with you. Thank you for breaking it down like that.
Okay, I did promise Adrian that he'd be in the queue. Adrian, please.
Yeah, I watched the video. And before I tell you my opinion of the video, I'll just say a gaslighting statement, which is not personal. It's just that all communication is hypnosis, is the belief that neurolinguistic programming can be a therapeutic tool. But what I'm trying to get at is that, now let me tell you about the video, meaning that what Charlie Kirk does in the beginning is the dumbest question, and it almost makes him sound like an anti-Semite Jew hater. And what he's doing is setting up a simulation using a verbose, vulgar, stupid hypothesis setup of hypnosis. And then this is what I hear a lot on this app for many years now, is people playing this word game called subjective, objective, objective, subjective. And then this kid, a young kid who's obviously has got a very fast brain and very smart, those two strokers are both wrong, and I'll say it again, they're both strokers. And when I say stroker, I mean they're both in that Charlie Kirk is in the media communication industry. And this is the critique of Candace Owens as well, is that she is an intentional gaslighter for clicks and eyeballs and media competition, just in the same way that CNN and MSNBC and every other major news portal is now engaged in essentially troll farming, engagement farming, click farming, propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and they're ruining everyone's lives because you are sucked into it because you get a dopamine feedback loop from their communication. So you're doing it right now by encouraging me to click to watch a Charlie Kirk video, but I give you the grace because I think I can analyze these strokers and call them for what they are. Strokers.
Are we to ignore anything that we're saying because we might give it a grace? So, what do you say?
I'm saying that all communication is hypnosis, time is money, money is time.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. And Rudy, I'd like to be Rudy. Would you like to speak? I'd like to get your opinion on this too. Would you like to speak? Are you coming up? Hi, Rudy. Okay. What we're doing is we're watching this 30-second spot, and I'd like to get your opinion on it. You see it? Watch it and let us know what you think. All right, Adrian. Okay, so we're serving in their hands if we're showing this video, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you're participating in their communication by orchestrating this room to encourage people to pay attention to their communication. If you want to be free of these charlatans, you have to know that everyone in this room is technically the truth. And you may not agree with everyone in this room, but hopefully you can all agree to disagree and know that peace is the ultimate outcome of all war. And unfortunately, we are living, you know that movie Cool Hand Luke when he says, I think what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Hey, really quick, before you go on your soliloquy, did you say peace is the ultimate outcome of all war? Is that what you said?
Correct. It's Tao Te Ching. This is Lao Tzu.
All right, guys, okay.
He's just trolling you.
No, there was nothing to land. I was done. Hey, I know you may not like me and you may not vote Trump, but go to the Jim Fatty and I'll say it again. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Adrian, I love you. That's why I brought you up.
I love you too, Raboyna Shalom.
Brody, did you see the clip?
Yeah, I saw the clip.
What do you have to say about it?
I disagree with the student, and I also disagree with the family.
Okay. And when you disagree, here's more. What exactly are we disagreeing with?
Atheism doesn't entail objectivism. Atheism doesn't entail, subjectivism. Subjectivism doesn't entail that you cannot say that the Holocaust is bad, good, or bad for that matter. And
the sake of the argument,
That's how pathetic it's gotten. He's admitting, he says, oh,
material of dead people or non-dead people. Because even if there was an objective morality by God or whatever, it would still be the case that believing objective morality will also result in a lot of dead people if they have incongruent beliefs about morality. So it's like every single thing about it is a little mess.
I lost by a.
I think that Adrian Trump has. He may get into that. I'll leave it alone.
Well, if you're gonna mention my name, I mean, if you want to mention my name, put me back in the queue, moderators. I guess I'm not finished here.
Wait a minute. Okay, we got a few things going on. We got someone that brought Adrian back in. We got Victoria saying about what did you say about Holocaust denial?
Well, C said something about him not being a Holocaust denier, but neither was the student. The student was specifically talking about objective truth. He was just talking about truth. That's all he was talking about.
Right. Yeah, nobody there was a Holocaust denier. There's another clip I got on Holocaust denial, but that's a different story. Okay.
Yeah, I was in a room earlier with this intellectual giant, CMB, aka Prince Anur, half man, half world, and he believes in reparations, and I just think that's communism. Prove me wrong.
Reparations for whom?
For African Americans or ADOS.
Right. Now that's an interesting subject to bring up right now, okay? What do we think about it?
I think I have laid out that eloquently, when Steve was even hosting the room. Yes, I do believe in reparations for ADOS people who come from
A law where they're going to give illegal aliens money to buy a house, but our soldiers, our veterans that are laying on the streets, they can't have them. You have soldiers right now laying on the streets of different cities, all Democrat run. They're laying on the streets in front of hotels, in some cases luxury hotels, and you have illegal immigrants coming in and living in those hotels and laughing at our soldiers as they walk by into a luxury lobby. Is there something wrong with that thinking? Is there something wrong with our country? If Kamala is allowed to continue to let our country be invaded, we will face a fiscal Armageddon. These migrants are consuming hundreds of billions of dollars in benefits. You saw in Colorado this week, a group from Venezuela, rough ones, they took over large sections of a town, large sections of an area of Colorado, Aurora. Has anyone been there? I think you'd better stay away for a little while. They had AK-47s, the ultimate guns, AK-47s. They can blow lots of people away real fast. And the sheriff didn't want to touch him. Nobody wants to touch him. The sheriff, there's 18 Venezuelans attacking my building. Would you please come over and straighten out the situation? He's got a deputy. You know what they say? Well, no thanks. Let's call in the military. They're taking over. And I said this 4 years ago when I realized they wanted open borders. And it's happened. It's happening now in Chicago. They're taking over sections of Chicago what's happening in New York and Los Angeles and many other cities is not even describable. They're tough. They're tough and they're smart and they're vicious. Don't forget, they come from the prisons and they're the bad criminals on the streets. Caracas, Venezuela has almost no crime. Next year, I'm going to suggest that the Economic Club hold its meeting in Caracas because we'll be safer than we are in our country if they win. We'll be far safer. But crime in Venezuela is down 72% because they've taken all of their criminals off the streets. Not all of them. They still have some left, but they're coming in rapidly by bus and by plane. They're coming into our country, and we're dumping them in our country. And they say, if you come back, we will kill you. And they're not going back. We got them. But they're going back if I'm president, I guarantee you that. They're going back fast. And now Kamala wants to give them food stamps, housing assistance, welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and destroy all of those programs. You will destroy those programs. That is why I will ask Congress to pass legislation barring all taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens. And by the way, when you do that, they won't come. They're coming now because they realize they've never seen wealth like this. They're getting things that they could never get. They're coming for that reason. If you stop that, you'll be dropping the flow by 80%. I think even more than that. They're coming because they're taken care of. Let's put them in a luxury. Let's put them in the Waldorf Astoria. That's a nice place. I will stop the invasion and send criminal illegal aliens back home. And when we do all of this, we will be so successful. We'll create America's own sovereign wealth fund to invest in great national endeavors for the benefit of all of the American people. Why don't we have a wealth fund? Other countries have wealth funds. We have nothing. We have nothing. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, or we can name it something different. I'll talk about it with Mr. Paulson, who's in the audience, and a lot of other friends of mine. And we'll name it something that's appropriate. Perhaps sovereign wealth fund wouldn't be appropriate, but it's going to be the same thing. We'll put tremendous amounts of money through all this money that will be taken in through tariffs and other intelligent things. And we'll have the greatest sovereign wealth fund of them all, and we should have. And that will be used to do things that will be great for our country, including to invest. And
This is Trump Live. This is the Economic Club.
Wisely invest and build it up bigger and stronger and better than any place on earth. We will build extraordinary national development projects and everything from highways to airports and to transportation infrastructure, all of the future.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to call you a fucking loser. I just meant to call you a fucking idiot.
We'll be able to invest in state-of-the-art manufacturing hubs, advanced defense capabilities, cutting-edge medical research, and help save billions of dollars in preventing disease in the first place. And I'm very honored to have been endorsed last week by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That was a great endorsement, and he's very much into helping people. He's very much into helping people. I've known him a long time. That was a great thing when he did that. That was not easy for a Kennedy to be endorsing a Republican. That was not easy. But these are not Democrats. These are radical left lunatics, and you can't let them run your country. We will invest in new and modern agricultural techniques so we can have safe, healthy, high-quality foods for our families. That's where Bobby is so interested, foods. He says we're putting a lot of bad foods in our body. You look at other countries which do far less, and they're actually much healthier than we are. This wealth fund will return a gigantic profit, which will help pay down national debt. We're going to work on national debt very strongly, by the way. We're going to have so much money coming in. We're going to work on national debt. We're at close to $36 trillion right now. We're going to work on getting it down. And it is many of the people.
That's definitely a lie.
People in this room who will be helping to advise and recommend investments for this fund. This is how we will end the era of inflation, mayhem, and misery under Kamala Harris. I've done it before. We did a great job, and now we really know our job well. I know the smartest, the best people. We have the best people. We have people that, many in this room, they know exactly what we want to do. You know, it's interesting having a
schedule is. It's just criminal. Welcome to the stage, Adrian and DeJuice. Yo, DeJuice, chime in, bro. Alright, y'all ever saw there's a YouTube video. It's called
experience because I won an election. I went to Washington. I was only in Washington 17 times. I never stayed over. That's according to the fake news, but I think they're right. Great job on trade. Bob Lighthizer, so many other people did such a great job. We rebuilt our military. We rebuilt our entire military, did a great job. We have great generals, not the television generals, not the generals that took us out of Afghanistan in 24 hours and left that horrible situation, but we have great generals. We defeated ISIS. It was supposed to take 5 years. It took me 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Our generals did a great job. We have great people in our military, and our military is not woke. Believe me, you couldn't get these guys to be woke. Some of the guys on top are woke, but those aren't the ones that are great. So we're going to do things that we didn't do even the first time. We had a great presidency. There was an article written the other day that the Trump presidency was a great presidency. With victory on November 5th, which will go down as the most important day in the history of our country, inflation will be gone, our energy will be unleashed, our economy will be set free, our sovereignty will be restored, our citizens will thrive, growth will come roaring back, and America's future will be brighter than ever before. So I want to thank you all. This has been a lovely experience. It was years ago that I was here. We talked about what we were going to do, and we did just about everything we said. And if you'd like, we'll take a few questions, Bob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trump.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're now moving, as promised, to the question and answer portion of the program. Our 4 very able questioners today are H. Rajan Cohen, the Senior Chair of Sullivan and Cromwell, Sandra Gerber, Founding and Managing Partner, CEO and CIO of Hudson Bay Capital, Mr. John Paulson, founder of Paulson and Company, and Reshma Sanjani, founder and CEO of Girls Who Code and Moms First. We're going to go in alphabetical order. And therefore, Raj, you have the first question.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about the United States economic sanctions programs. These programs have been used, as you well know, to advance our national security interests, our foreign policy objectives, but they also have economic implications. And the most recent was the program against Russia in response to their invasion of Ukraine, where for once we got the support of all our allies. So my specific question is, would you strengthen or modify any of these economic sanctions programs, particularly Russia, including the pipeline you mentioned?
Well, it's a great question. The problem with what we have with sanctions, and I was a user of sanctions, but I put them on and take them off as quickly as possible because ultimately it kills your dollar and it kills everything the dollar represents, and we have to continue to have that be the world currency. I think it's important. I think it would be losing a war if we lost the dollar as the world currency. I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. So I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off because look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia, China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries that you're going to lose that, and we can't lose that. So I want to use sanctions as little as possible. One of the things that we have with tariffs is that I'll say to them, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency. You know, tariffs, in addition to monetary and the money that we'll take in, which will be bigger than you've ever seen in this country before, gives you tremendous political power for something like that, as an example. I stopped wars with the threat of tariffs. I stopped wars with two countries that mattered a lot. A lot of people would have been killed. And I threatened tariffs coming into the United States if they don't make peace. And we made a lot of, we didn't have conflicts like you have right now. We had very intelligent people. But the biggest threat you have is you lose that currency, and we have lost something that you'll never get back. And we can keep it if we're smart, but they use it too much, and then they just forget about it. And these countries like Russia, it's going out now and doing its own thing. And, you know, they're going out bragging about how they don't need us anymore, et cetera, et cetera. The sad part about Russia is that Ukraine would have never happened if I was president. So we wouldn't really have to be talking about sanctions, but it did happen. And one of the things I'm going to do, a little bit relevant to your question, is if we win, I believe I can settle that war while I'm president-elect. Before I ever get into office, I can get that war settled and get that war stopped, because it's a horrible, horrible war. And far more people are killed in Ukraine, far more people than you're realizing. They'll knock down this massive building, amazing, the size of these buildings, they'll knock it down. They'll say nobody was injured. No, a lot of people were killed. The real numbers are far greater than what people are looking.
So I've been watching a lot of the Asian shit.
So I think it's a very important thing. Sanctions have to be used very judiciously, and you can win. We have things much more powerful, actually, than sanctions. We have trade, but we cannot lose our dollar standard. Very important. Thank you very much.
Great. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. President, for all the details on your economic policy. As you alluded to, tariffs are the other side of sanctions. And given that China is our major trading partner with our largest imbalance and possibly our chief national security threat to the United States, how can we better institutionalize trade policy and national security policy to be coordinated?
So I had a great relationship with President Xi of China. Really very close relationship. Now look, he likes China, I like us, so, but I don't want to sound foolish. He was my dear, dear friend. He's a tough guy, he's a fierce person. I say very smart. You know, when you say he's smart, the fake news goes crazy. He said President Xi is smart. And I say, you know, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. He's smart. But we had a very good relationship with China until COVID. And when that came in, it was a whole different ballgame as far as I was concerned. You know, we made a great China trade deal, maybe better than the USMCA. And I'd never talk about it because what happened with COVID for the whole world, $60 trillion and, you know, deaths, 70 million, 60, nobody even knows how many deaths. And it all came out of Wuhan. So it changed my relationship. But I think I'll have a great relationship with China. I had one before, and they respected us, but they respected us because they no longer thought we were fools. They used to think we were fools because we built China. They would take over $500 billion a year and use it for their military and other things. And we got nothing out of that. We got some cheap product. You can buy 19 pencils instead of 2. Who the hell cares? You can buy 16 dolls for your daughter instead of 2 nice dolls. And we got very little out of that relationship. They got a tremendous military power, and they still have it today. So, but I believe we will have a very good relationship with China and with a lot of other countries that we're not getting along with too well today. And things are going to straighten out. We're going to get them straightened out very quickly. Very important that we get along with the rest of the world. You know, we have things today called nuclear weapons. I rebuilt our whole military, including our nuclear capability. And so I got very familiar with it. And, you know, I say this often because I had an uncle who was the longest serving, I believe the longest serving, I was told that by MIT, but he was there 39, I guess, or 41 years, longest serving professor in the history of MIT, and nuclear was something he knew a lot about. And we used to talk about it. I'd say, Uncle John, there's no way. He was telling me about this incredible power that was being unleashed potentially. And I'd say, Uncle John, you could never. And you know what? He was very modest, because I've seen the destructive capability. And this world is going to have to get along, because if that's ever unleashed, we already have too many countries that have at least remnants of it, some of it. But probably 5 countries, if you think. And Kim Jong-un, when I went to the White House after winning in 2016, I sat with President Obama, which is a ritual. And you sit and you talk. And I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea is the biggest problem. I don't think it's solvable. I said, have you tried calling him or talking to him? Actually, the answer was yes, and he wasn't responded to. But I did, and we were very safe. It started off a little rocky, if you remember. Little Rocket Man, I called him, and he called me things too. He's got a red button on his desk. I said, I have a bigger red button, and my red button works. I said, and then it started getting a little nicer, and then one day I got a call that they'd like to meet, and it was a great thing. We had a great meeting. We had 2 meetings, actually 2 great meetings, summits, and we had no problem with them. Now they have a problem because they're not liking this administration. They don't respect this administration at all. So we have to get along. We have to get along. We can't have World War III. You're going to end up in World War III. Just like you should have never had Russia go in. It would have never happened if a competent person led us. It would have never happened. He led them into it. And I'm not blaming Biden. But you know what? What he was saying was exactly the wrong thing. I said, we're going to have an invasion because of a lot of the rhetoric. It was stupid rhetoric. But it would have never happened, not only for that reason. Oil was down low. You know, oil was almost at $100 a barrel. So Putin is one of the only people. I mean, nothing's easy in life. But Putin at $100 a barrel, war works. At $40 a barrel, it didn't work at all. So we're going to get back to a intelligently run place, a place where other countries aren't using the word nuclear. That word was never talked about because I knew the power of it. And I talked to Putin about it. I talked to President Xi about it. I think we were going to you remember the talk where we were going to reduce nuclear capability substantially. All 3 of us, we're going to reduce very substantially. And then we had the election, and after the election, they didn't talk about that or anything else, frankly. But we have to be very, very careful, because the destructive capability of nuclear, when people talk about global warming, I say the ocean is going to go down 1/100th of an inch within the next 400 years. That's not our problem. Our problem is nuclear warming, and we better be smart, and we better have smart people at the top that know how to deal, because these people don't know how to deal. Putin came out today, he endorsed Kamala. And I didn't know, was I supposed to call him up and say, thank you very much, I appreciate it. But he endorsed Kamala. I have a feeling, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to say about that. I don't know if I'm insulted or he did me a favor. But we have to get along with the world. We can't have war, because the destructive capability, you can be the head of the biggest bank wherever the hell Jamie is sitting. You can be the head of the biggest bank in the world, and a couple of nukes and your bank doesn't mean a thing. You gotta get along. This is such an important job. It's a dangerous job too. Very dangerous job. If you look at statistically, being president is very dangerous. That throbbing feeling I have. Oh, that throbbing feeling. No, it's a very dangerous job, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, bad things will happen to the world, things like you've never seen before. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Paulson behind me to your right, Mr. President.
Hi, John.
First, let me thank you for your presentation today. President Trump, in the last fiscal year, the fiscal deficit under the Biden administration was approximately $2 trillion. Under the policies you've announced, the deficit would come down from items such as increased revenues from tariffs, as well as eliminating the tax incentives for the Green New Deal. These gains would be mitigated by decreases in revenues from policies such as no tax on tips. Overall, what do you estimate will be the impact of the fiscal deficit from your policies?
Well, we just hit record highs at numbers that nobody ever thought possible. You're right, it's over $2 trillion. Nobody thought that was a number that was, I mean, you could go back 4 years, nobody thought a number like that would be possible. It's crazy. It's like, it's just horrible, actually. But yeah, we're 2 trillion, and I view it as profit and loss to a certain extent. A lot of people say, oh, it's trade. You know, you have many people say trade deficits don't matter. I think they matter a lot. I think they matter a lot. We're going to have tremendous growth. This, what I'm talking about, is all about growth. Tax is relatively minor compared. They wanted to do that during my administration. I said, if you do it, we're going to put a 200% tariff on every car, and you'll never be able to see it. There will never be one car coming across our border. And if I would have let them do it, we would have had these two factories. Well, now they're building massive factories, more than two, and they're going to kill Detroit. And the head of the union, the United Auto Workers in Detroit, has done a terrible, terrible job, just a terrible job. But we're going to bring tremendous growth back. And remember, we're also taking in a certain percentage. I won't name the percentage today, but it'll be a certain tariff percentage, which will be higher than people had heard in the past. And we will be bringing in billions and billions of dollars, which will directly reduce our deficits. Okay, thank you very much. Good job you've done, by the way. Very good.
Thank you. And the final question, Resma, is to you.
Thank you. President Trump, you talked about how the increase in the price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. But the real cost that's breaking families' backs and preventing women from participating in the workforce is childcare. Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year, making it one of the most urgent economic issues that is facing our country. In fact, the cost of childcare is outpacing the cost of inflation, with the majority of American families of young children spending more than 20% of their income on childcare. One thing that Democrats and Republicans have in common is that both parties talk a lot about what they're going to do to address the childcare crisis, but neither party has delivered meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time. coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people, but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trump. It's great that you accepted our invitation to be with us today. Thank you, Raj, Sander, John, and Reshma for your questions. The president is now going to be leaving the building, and so we want to all stay seated while he and his team leave. But as he leaves, let's all say thank you one more time for him accepting our invitation to be here today.
Should have kept the mic on.